Why is the Nun II successful at the box office, even far above The Expandable 4, which looks very ridiculous if we compare a sequel film with its predecessor? That's only natural. The Nun II, 2023, stands out compared to The Nun, 2018, and here are some reasons why this sequel is even more impressive than the previous film. More diverse supporting cast. In The Nun, the story focuses almost entirely on its three main characters, Sister Irene, Father Burke, and Maurice. Even though it is in line with the focus of smaller stories such as The Nun II succeeds in creating a more complex storyline with the support of a more diverse cast of supporting characters. In this film, Irene works with a nun named Deborah, someone who often asks questions about the Christian faith. This helps Irene better understand herself as an individual and also as a servant of God. Irene's character development in The Nun II is sharper than in the first The Nun. Deborah even experiences slight character changes which have an impact on the end of the story. Maurice also becomes a more dimensional character in The Nun II. This is mainly because he gets more screen time in this sequel. Maurice also interacts with Kate, a teacher at the boarding school where he works, and Kate's daughter, Sophie. However, as we know from several films in the Conjuring universe, Maurice has been possessed, which we can see in the first film The Conjuring, 2013, and in the first film The Nun, 2018. Which one? The plot connects the events quite closely. It all started when in the first film The Nun, Maurice, who managed to save Irene, suddenly got an inverted cross on the back of his neck. With all these facts, the audience is made tense when in this film Maurice gets closer to Kate and Sophie, which of course creates an interesting tension that wasn't present in the first The Nun. Additionally, even the main antagonist who abuses Sophie, namely Mean Girl Simone, has a minor character journey connected to the headmistress Madame Lauron. All of these supporting characters contribute to a story that is ultimately more emotional and complex than seen in The Nun. Advantages due to audiences with lower expectations. When The Nun was released in 2018, many had high hopes for the film. This comes after the hugely successful Annabelle creation, 2017, and set a new standard for spin-offs in the Conjuring franchise after the less popular Annabelle, 2014. Just as Annabelle creation revealed the origins of the Annabelle doll, The Nun is positioned as the origin story of the mysterious nun who first appeared in The Conjuring 2, 2016. Although The Nun essentially reveals the origins of demonic nuns, the main focus of the story is less about the origins of demons in the Middle Ages, and more about the investigation of a death in a convent in 1952. For some, the promise of an origin story may not be fulfilled to their liking. On the other hand, The Nun II does not have the same expectations regarding the world building of the story. No one expected more from this sequel, so low expectations at the beginning actually resulted in a positive response to the film The Nun II. The reason is, when it was first released, the film The Nun, 2018, did not receive a special response either from critics or fans. That's why the initial response to The Nun II was much more positive, because the audience's expectations were not too high. The ability to present a new film without having to live up to certain expectations likely helped The Nun II gain better exposure. More complicated mysteries. The investigation into the deaths that occurred in the first The Nun was quite simple. Father Burke and Sister Irene are sent to the convent where the death occurred. They learn the dark history of the monastery that confined the devil, where the devil tried to escape from its walls, and they find a way to deal with it. Simple, but fitting for a film that is largely built on atmosphere and jump scares. In The Nun II, a mystery involving the demon Valak requires further investigation from Sister Irene. Viewers have known that Maurice has been possessed by a demon since the end of the first The Nun, but Irene has to accept it, especially as she and Deborah track a series of mysterious deaths stretching from Romania to France. Most of the time in the film is given to Irene and Deborah's investigation. Apart from that, Valak's goal in The Nun II is also more interesting. In The Nun, Valak desires a bodily figure to possess, so that she can escape from the monastery. This has been known since the beginning of the film. However, it turns out that in the sequel, Valak's true purpose is finally revealed. At the end of The Nun II, we find out why Valak chose his target and what exactly Valak is looking for. All of these revelations unfold gradually as Irene learns more and gets closer to the truth. Deeper relationship between Irene and Valak in The Nun II. Sister Irene always seems to have a connection with the demon Valak. During her investigation of the convent in Romania in The Nun, we learn that Irene is destined to face Valak because of visions of Maria that haunted her throughout her life. This vision leads him to find a sacred object needed to fight the devil. But beyond that, Valak and Irene's relationship is still more open to interpretation. The Nun II clearly shows us why Irene and Valak have always been attracted to each other. Without giving any spoilers about the ending, Irene's strength in fighting demons comes directly from her connection to what Valak is looking for. This is Irene's strength and is also what makes her a target. Likewise, the strength that Valak seeks is also his greatest weakness. This higher level of complexity makes the final battle in the Nun II even more interesting. A more thrilling ending in the Nun II. The final fight between Irene and Valak in the Nun II is more interesting thanks to a greater emphasis on the two characters' relationship, and everything surrounding the fight makes the overall ending more satisfying. Each supporting actor plays an important role in the final act of the Nun II, which feels much bigger than the ending of the previous film. Kate, Sophie, and Deborah all play important roles in the last few minutes of the film, and their actions create a series of parallel scenes that come together in one big performance as Irene confronts Valak. Valak method that is more clearly visible. Fans of the Conjuring universe already know the demon Valak from his various appearances in the franchise. Although the nun's appearance is the form most commonly associated with Valak, Valak has actually taken various forms at various times. For example, in The Conjuring 2, Valak briefly takes the form of the Crooked Man. Valak initially took the form of a nun due to being summoned in a monastery and trapped there for centuries, but a nun is not her true form. In the Nun II, it is said that Valak can take whatever form is most frightening to the person who encounters the demon. And the last. Closer ties to The Conjuring. Closer ties to the, for fans of the ever-expanding Conjuring universe, you will know that the Nun II is good at connecting its story with the Conjuring films without disturbing the storyline. First, fans have speculated since the first The Nun that Sister Irene and Lorraine Warren were connected in some way. This makes sense because the actors playing both roles, Taissa Farmiga and Vera Farmiga, are sisters and their resemblance is obvious. Some fan theories suggest that Irene is actually Lorraine Warren. The idea may sound a bit far-fetched, but the Nun II directly addresses the idea that Irene and Lorraine are connected. Without giving away any spoilers about the film, the relationship between the two characters also explains why Valak and Lorraine Warren are attracted to each other. There is also a direct visual reference to The Conjuring 2 in the Nun II. At one point in the Nun II, Sophie sees Valak at the end of the hall. Even though the scene takes place in a dimly lit hallway area, the hallway that Sophie sees is quite bright and there is floral patterned wallpaper on the walls. The pattern of the wall wallpaper, the audience can already guess that the hallway is actually the same hallway, with the existing hallway, at the Warren house, where Ed and Lorraine's daughter Judy first saw the demon nun in The Conjuring 2. In fact, it looks like the exact same scene. This clear connection to the main Conjuring series was a pleasant surprise for fans, and it's a good way to make the Nun II feel important to watch rather than just a spin-off that will be overlooked. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.
Yes, Father.